What's going on, everybody? It's John with ACTION-FLIX.com coming at you with another episode of the Action-FLIX podcast. Got another great episode for you guys today, an exclusive interview with one of my personal favorites, big-time action designer, filmmaker. I call him an action star. He probably won't call himself an action star, but I as hell will call him an action star. He's got a big day today. It's the 20th anniversary of his first full-length feature film that he did, Contour, which he's dropping on his YouTube channel tonight. And we're going to talk all about that. So without further ado, let me bring him on, Eric Jacobus. Eric, how you doing today?
Hey, what's up? I dressed up for the interview.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it's like I saw you like putting on your Hawaiian shirt there. So it's like I don't have one, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't have one, unfortunately. So I'm just wearing my Captain America shirt. So, guys, it's so good to hear from you again. I mean, I talked to you for when you had Blindsided come out a few years back. So we had talked about that, which was really cool. So I gotta ask you, like, since I talked to you, your beard's gotten longer since I last talked to you.
Yeah, that tends to happen over time.
Yeah, so it's like, are you gonna just see how long it goes, or are you just gonna?
I think I found the limit. It won't go any further, and it might be because I'm going gray. You see all this gray? I'm gonna let it come in, but the gray just like pushes the black hairs out, and it just, I don't know, like it doesn't grow anymore. But maybe when it's fully gray, then I can have Paime level.
Well, I was gonna ask, like if you do because if you do more filming, like you're gonna do like a Fu Manchu like video or something, like short film, like like with you.
I don't know. I think whatever I do, might just have to have a justification for having a beard in it at this point. I don't plan on cutting it.
Yeah. I love it. It looks great. So good to talk to you again. So again, real quick, I just want to get into some of your history for the people out there that are watching, but then I want to talk all about Contour because that's what we're here today to talk about. So real quick, give us your history with the martial arts. How did you get into it? What led you on your journey to finally, being like, hey, white guys can do Jackie Chan style action?
Yeah, funny you should say that. Recently Brad Allen passed. I think he was a big inspiration, not just for white guys, right? Because like we were looking at Bobby Samuels too, and Kim Marie Penn, all these like Guilos who were in Hong Kong films. And I think a lot of those people inspired us, a whole generation of us. And my generation and my ilk, I guess, we don't really like look at the race. We kind of just look at like, well, here's a style of action that's particular to a place like Hong Kong. And then you get people coming in from all these different countries and they like learn how to move like that. And that to us was super inspirational. And it just kind of showed to us that like this is a universal language that maybe we could pick up. But before that, I was kind of a math geek growing up. And my first job was Visual Basic and PHP programming. So I was kind of a computer nerd like that.
Yeah, you're creating websites, were you not?
Yeah, that was one of my first.
When they were first starting, it wasn't like easy back then.
Back when it was, you opened up Notepad and you start typing HTML in it, and then you upload it to Fortune City.
Right.
And not many websites back then, and not many websites reviewing Hong Kong films. And I sort of had this passion on the side for just watching Hong Kong films. I was 16 and started a website where I would just review the Hong Kong films and I'd review the action. There were a few that reviewed, the story. I think, oh my gosh, I think Kung Fu Cinema had their reviews. There was Ron Lim. He would review, and some people might remember these. I
remember. Yeah, I remember.
Y2K lore. And so I said, I'll just review action. And so got a hold of a lot of rare martial art films, put those on the website, reviewed like 500 movies in the end.
Holy cow.
Got pretty good at identifying, the performers and the stuntmen. At the time I was doing weightlifting, gymnastics. I'd done some martial arts, but I knew tech. And I was a big fan of skate videos in the late 90s. A lot of my friends were skaters. And they would go out and make skate videos. And I was like, well, why can't we take one of these cameras and kind of take skate filmmaking philosophy, right? It's kind of like what Jackass did and CKY with BAM and whatnot. And why can't we just go out and make, films with these. We'll make our own action films. Well, who's stopping us, right? And we just did it. And it was really easy. And a few people were kind of doing it at the time. You know, there was Quoon, there was Zero Gravity. They'd been going since like 98 or so. And so we jumped in like 2001, and then we haven't stopped.
So like when you like the first couple of times, like you went out there, like you were just on the streets, you know, in California, like doing it. Did you ever get like in trouble? Like, did you ever get like the like police ever like come by and be like, "Hey, what you doing?"
You know, it was such a like weird thing to do at the time because nobody was making movies in the streets back then.
Right.
Because like if you were making a movie back then, you had a big camera, right? You
Yes.
had a camera, and that was a big deal to have a camera. And if you had a little dinky 3-chip, we didn't even have a 3-chip at the time. We just had a digital 8 with Firewire. So we would go out and we'd film stuff. And you know, we were in a small town, Redding, California, and nobody knew like what any of that was. Like there was no YouTube. So we would go out, you know, we'd be making movies behind some guy's, you know, shop. I remember one guy came out one time. He was like, "What y'all doing?" My buddy said, "We're making a kung fu movie." He's like, "Kung fu movie? Like Chuck Norris?" He was really impressed. And we're like, "Yeah, man." And nobody cared. It was just cool. So we could get away with anything. Sometimes the police would show up and they'd go, "Oh, do you need some footage of police cars?" Like, yeah, police cars.
That's awesome.
People aren't so hospitable anymore.
No, unfortunately.
But back then, you know, it was really easy. Nowadays, you get robbed on the street for having a camera.
That's what I tell my daughters. I'm like, it was so much better, like when Daddy was growing up. It's like they have
in
no
some
idea.
ways, you know. I mean, in other ways, like it was really difficult. And that was where we kind of had a little bit of a monopoly, because in order to go from camera to internet, you're talking about like a handful of people were doing that.
Now, how'd you release the movies like before the internet was a thing, like before YouTube? Like, how did you get your?
Well, I'm not that old. There was still internet.
Okay, so you still had the internet at the time. Yeah, so there was still internet going on. Okay.
You know, back then you could get like 2 megabytes.
But it was like dial-up, right? It was like, was it still the dial-up? You know, we had
it was
like
brutal. So,
yeah.
You know, you had to get a USB capture card, and nobody's going to care about this stuff, but I'll say it anyway. You get a capture card, you get like really low quality version of your DV tape into your cheap computer, edit that and release it. It's like crummy frame rate. It's going to be a window this big, and it's going to be 20 megabytes. So you have to get like 10 Fortune City accounts, split it up 10 pieces into zip files. You release. It was a nightmare. But we did it, and I figured out workarounds. And then my buddy who made a file sharing program, I went to school with him. He had a website with like a lot of space that he never used. And he said, "Well, why don't you host it there?" His name was John, and John was really good. And we put the website on there eventually, and that's when we could like upload higher quality videos before YouTube. This is like 2002, 2003.
Now talk about the formation of the stunt people, your action design team, because that's when I caught on to you guys. Because I was like, because that's what I like. I mean, I don't want to make it sound racist, but it's like white guys doing Hong Kong Jackie Chan movies, and I was like, holy shit! I was
well, I could find. It was in a small town in Northern California. You know, if I could have found one Chinese guy, I would have grabbed him. You know,
right? Like, come here. It's like, it's like we need you.
Yeah, like I think a lot of the guys like didn't even want to do it. It was just. You know, we would watch these Hong Kong movies, and at one point, you know, one night I was like, guys, what if we just did that? What if we just went out and did that? Like, it's all trick photography, right? Like a lot of it's just montage editing. I've reviewed these movies. I know how it all works. And they're like, all right, let's try it out. And I think, you know, we have one camera guy from my college, and he was a friend of mine. And I have one other guy, Chelsea, who was like a good performer. He could do backflips and kick high and all this. And then we had to get like a bunch of other people who didn't want to do it. It was like, and we would, you know, one of like the big films that we did early on was Teamwork 2. I did that at the end of 2002. That was the first time we got a DVD release, because they were doing short film compilations. We got onto an action film compilation called Everyone is Kung Fu Fighting.
I remember those. Yes.
Yeah. And that got us a ton of attention, by the way, like back when DVDs were, you know, important. And, you know, making that movie, it's a 20-minute movie. I would have to like wrangle people and, you know, pull them out of their houses. They were hungover, you know, trying to get them before they go to prison, whatever it was, man, just to make these stupid videos. Cause we were just like, let's just make something cool before, I don't know, who knows what'll happen. Right. And we just hit the concrete, and we loved it.
So like with the stunt people, well, like when did you know like you had something like you're like this is gold. This is what we're doing.
I think after Teamwork 2, when Jeff Centauri emailed me and said, "You want to put that on a DVD?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And I think he paid us like $100. I think we made our budget back on
Yeah,
that.
I was gonna say, yeah, there you go. It's like we got
Um,
paid.
yeah, so and then like once that came out and we networked with other people on the DVD. That's how I met Steve Reedy and realized, by the way, that there's this world out there of people doing this. Now, again, no social media at the time. This
Yes.
is just before MySpace, just before YouTube. And so like this was how we networked, was like we got onto a DVD and we all met at Comic-Con and I met Steve Reedy. Um, and we somehow I met the San Francisco action team with Dennis Ruel, because I was going to San Francisco State at the time too. And so like that was a networking opportunity, and I realized like, okay, there's a world of people that want to do this, so let's make something. Well, the first thing that happened was Reedy wanted to do Undercut, and we did a short film with Reedy. And I think when Steve Reedy like introduced sort of his vision for filmmaking, his way of storytelling, combined it with our crazy action style, like it was a huge hit. Got nominated for an MTV Movie Award. I think then it was kind of like hitting pretty hard. Like, well, this is what we got to do.
Yeah, talk about Dennis Ruel, like hooking up with him because like you guys were like Tango and Cash, like doing these things, like it was like I said, you guys were like this dynamic combination, like of like just like I get white guys doing Hong Kong Jackie Chan style action.
Yeah, Dennis is like a very refined martial artist, and he's a good
Yes.
actor, and he's very different, right? And he had his own team in the Bay Area, and I think it was him who emailed me when they found out that I was in the Bay Area and I was starting to stunt people up there. And I had an Asian guy. It was amazing. The
Yay!
martial art
Yeah.
teacher. I was like, oh, I got one. Look, all my friends at home were like, "Hey man, let me touch him."
And he looks like Jackie Chan. That's even better. He's like,
Yeah, so, and like my Taekwondo teacher, Andy, he's in Contour, by the way, obviously main star. Anybody can get it, he's a main star. He wanted to do Donnie Yen style action movies because he could kind of move like Donnie Yen. He was like really freaking good. So he taught me martial arts. But Dennis had his team, and we connected. And literally the day when they came, we used to do a stunt practice every Sunday at my Taekwondo school. And we were there late one night, and I was like, "Dude, come by, bring your whole team." So they brought us whole team. And like on the way into the door, we're like, "Hey, we're making a short film. Why don't you be the main guy? And you come and you do this to this guy, and he's gonna duck, and you kick him, and he falls out." And Dennis is like, "Oh, all right." So I don't think we even had a conversation. I think we just started making a movie. We haven't stopped.
So let's talk about Contour now. When did you decide to be like, okay, we're gonna make a feature length? I mean, it's an hour and like 40 minutes long, so it's pretty solid, in terms of running like and stuff like that. And I was watching it today, and I just how like because I want to ask you about the comedic aspects, like
Yeah,
because
sure.
it's just funny, like at the beginning, like you and Dennis are like, he's like you were 15 seconds late. He's like, you know what? That's like being an hour late, or you're like, it took 15 seconds to say that. I'm like, where's
Yeah.
I was like just
Yeah.
laughing my ass
I
off.
think Reedy wrote that line because
Yeah.
Reedy was our camera guy, and Reedy was really helpful in the script writing too. He came up
Or
with a
then
lot
when
of
you
yeah.
get shot and then like he walks up and starts shooting, and every guy comes up and just starts shooting, and then
Yeah.
like it's like oh my god, it's like okay, so I'm getting ahead of myself, sorry, but let's talk about the formation of Contour and like, hey, let's do a movie, everybody. Was everybody like, yeah, or were they like
Yeah, that was when the Stunt People was full of a bunch of folks that really wanted to do it. Everybody was just excited at that point,
okay,
especially
good,
after
yep.
everyone has come through fighting, Undercut. Everybody was just stoked at that point to do
Yep.
it, and so I think the idea came around when I was doing Undercut, and there's this one shot. It's like 3 seconds long where I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt. It's like a different character. It's not the main character. It's this flashback of a guy in a Hawaiian shirt killing a guy with a pineapple. Makes no sense. It doesn't matter. But
Right.
I thought, like, how cool is this character who is this like badass, like looks like a tour guide? What if he's like a con man? I just wrote a script like right away. It took like 2 weeks. It was 40 pages, and didn't even like think about it. I went to a guy who I made a horror film with, Rosa Hebe, and he was starting a production company. He wanted to get some titles. He said, "I'll give you $3,000. You can make your movie." And I was like, "That's so much money, man! Like, I've never made a movie.
Like that's the most
never
money I've seen in my
seen that
life.
much money."
Yeah.
So I took his $3,000, and we had I think we borrowed his camera. I can't remember. And we just started. We just started doing it. We didn't care. Like I had the script. I knew the structure of the movie.
Right. So I was gonna say you had the scripts, like so you had like the whole script done. So like at least we know like where the story is going.
Yeah, and like that story never really changed. But the dialogue would, I'd rewrite the dialogue every morning and every night. But we'd show up and but the fight scenes, we didn't plan anything. There was no planning with the fight scenes. Zero previs. We didn't even know the location half the time. Now with the warehouse, that warehouse was one of my other Taekwondo teacher, another Asian guy, Hugh Lau. He at one point I said, "I'm making a movie," and he's like, "Use my warehouse." I was like,
"There you go.
Cool. Are you sure?" He said, "Oh yeah, sure." So we stayed there for a year doing that movie. We probably shot 60 days in that warehouse. And but
yes,
the fight scenes,
the press release that I got, it's like 60 days just for the end fight scene set piece alone. And it said everybody suffered a major, not just an injury, but a major injury while filming it.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I know that some got it worse than others, but
right.
This is what you do when you love what you're doing,
Yes.
And I just can't. I just think back on it where, again, we didn't have a plan when we did the action. I had like a very simple structure, but a lot of the time we didn't even know if we would finish the fight that day, in a week. We had no idea. Like with a fight with Dennis, we just didn't know where it was going, and we didn't care. We just like, well, let's go this way now in the warehouse, in the aisle. And one day, like we barely made it out of the aisle. I was like, that's cool. That's how fights work. Yeah, fights are very stream of consciousness, and that's how we played it.
Yeah.
And that was not deliberate. That was just like how we thought. There was no intention of not prevising. That's like that's the wrong way of thinking about it. We went in thinking like there's no other way to do a fight scene than this. And now previs is like, you always previs, right? The previs, for those who don't know, is when you prep your action scene. You actually
you plan ahead.
Yeah, and you actually shoot like a version of it. And some people take it to the extreme and like we'll go on location and do really hard hitting falls in the previs. But I think like sometimes there's a risk of prevising where you start over planning and you lose the stream of consciousness. And it doesn't, like, you want to get people and just pull them along. That's what you want.
Yep.
That's what I always was looking for in Hong Kong films, where the fight just pulls you and you just go with it. And you're just sort of like in there for the ride. Movies like Drunken Master 2 would do that. Movies like Flashpoint. And they're thinking like that because like sometimes they'll spend like an inordinate amount of time in one location, like obsessing over one place. And they just will not leave this location, right? It's like Jackie and Ken Lo fighting on that first level. They stay there for a long time, and like that would never pass the previs process. But when you shoot it Hong Kong style, it's like, yeah, man, use that. You just obsess about it. And we would obsess, and we would just do whatever we wanted to do.
Well, that was the thing too, like, because in American movies, no offense, like at the time, but like American movies, like fight scenes lasted like a minute 30, minute 50. Then like, you watch Hong Kong action movies, but again, back then they weren't readily available. I only had available because my cousin owned a store that I worked at, a video store, and he got them all. So, and I ate all that up. So it's like the fight scenes, and then you guys were same thing, homage to Hong Kong. The fight scenes are so insanely long, and it's like how do you keep up the endurance for something like that?
Yeah, 12 days of shooting for this fight, maybe 14 days, I think.
So 2 weeks to do this one fight alone.
Yeah, like spread across months. By the way, we would just do it whenever we could. Like again, with fights like that, like you said, American fights. I mean, even today, though, you don't get like that level of obsession in a fight scene in America today. There's too much money. You can't. It's like the opposite of, you can't afford, but it's like the opposite. of like not being able to afford. Like you have so much money, you can't afford to obsess in this location. You have to move on and put a car. You have to blow up. You can't afford to not blow up a car.
No.
Right. Like a great example.
Flip it 5 times and then blow it up.
Yeah. Yeah. A great example is Jackie and Donnie Yen fighting at the end of Shanghai Nights. Now that fight has an uncut version where you get a little bit of that Hong Kong obsession inside of the tent, and they fight, and there's some good gags in there. But then in the American release, they cut all that. Like as soon as they start fighting, the American producer's like, okay, great, that's perfect. Cut there, and then show the fireworks, show the explosions. Okay, show that stuff. Okay, now we'll cut back and we'll show them finishing the fight in the tent, and everyone will kind of piece it together in their heads.
See, that's the thing too. Yeah, like again, like another thing is like there was a movie called Cradle to the Grave, you know, which starred Jet Li and Mark Dacascos. Like Jet Li and Mark Dacascos are funny, but yet they'd always intersperse with other people. I'm like, I just want to see these two.
Yeah, you can't afford to just shoot a fight scene.
It's like, why do they do that? It's so frustrating.
Or it's like maybe the terminology should be, you must afford to cut away from the fight scene.
It's like, and it would just start to be getting good, and then they cut. No offense, Kelly Hughes, she's attractive and everything. I'm like, I don't mind seeing her fight, but can we just watch an unedited Jet Li Mark Dacascos fight? Is what I'm saying.
It's hard,
and that's what I love about you guys. It's like, yeah, we're just gonna like, you know, set the camera up where we want it and just like go for broke.
Look, it's the reality of it, right? Where if you have $50 million, unless you have a stuntman directing it, who has like a lot of control behind everything, like Chad Stahelski.
Well, that's the thing, and that's like the good trend now is getting these stunt guys. Like, you know, you should get hired to film a freaking damn big budget.
Yeah, come on, give me money.
Yeah, like I'm gonna champion for you.
Get with it.
Yes.
Maybe after Contour comes out, they'll see how far $3,000 went.
Exactly. Now let's like, the budget. Why? Of course, the budget was almost like minuscule for this movie, and I love how like in the press release it says that like everybody was just throwing like hoods on their faces and like they just jump it into the mix, so that way it's like the same people fighting over and over again. But it's like that's what you do, and you were smart and you knew what to do and with what you had, and that's what makes a good filmmaker.
Yeah, sometimes like that's art.
Yes.
It's probably the story of all art, where you have this amazing artist who does this incredible work, and it's all stream of consciousness, and he dumps his brain into his art, right? And it's like, look what this guy can get away with no money. Let's give him a ton of money and let him do that with more money, and then the art is not what it used to be. And the investors go, well, how he screwed up, right? Like that's sort of the idea. And it's like, you maybe there are some people who can make that transition, right? Some people make that jump very well. You see someone like Chad Stahelski who sees, you know, his film school was working with the Wachowskis. Like that's film school for him. And so, you know, when you can see then how things are made, it's like, well, when you get money, you can still apply your art to that thing. But most of the time that's just not what happens, right? Like you inevitably have to sort of cater to the money, and that's okay. Like those movies are fine. They're not Hong Kong action. They're American action. Like look, like a Terminator movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I wouldn't really want to see them dwelling on like him versus the T-1000 smashing into the walls in that, you know, in the hallway, right? I would want to see that go out into the streets. Yeah, get into a truck and say, yeah, he's going to break into the canal, explosion. Of course, it makes sense. That's its own thing, right? That's a different thing. But when you want to do these very personal sort of, you know, I got you here, we're going to fight in this spot and we're going to destroy this space right here for the next 5 minutes and people are going to love it. Like The Raid, right? Now, maybe sometimes those fights are a little long in the teeth, but anyway, like
it can be too long. There can be where it's just like, holy cow, like the audience needs to take a break and like freaking like get a drink of water.
But there's an effect of that movie where the audience feels very satisfied with how that action plays out, and you can't make a Raid for $100 million. It's not possible. You make a Dread. So I'm realistic about this, right? I'm not asking for $100 million. I would not make this. I can't.
Exactly.
It would be very, very difficult. I would have to afford to blow up cars. Maybe I would just do that and fight in front of it. But
or walk away in slow motion. That's
yeah.
always a good thing to do. Now let's talk about the 20th anniversary. As I put this out, I love this. It's like bloopers. It's 11 minutes of people falling. It's like I love that. It's like let's show everybody just falling. But okay, so like again, I remember when it was released as The Agent, and I was just like, oh, it's I know this movie, and I'm like, that's not what it's called. And then all these like other versions, like heavily edited and stuff like that. So talk about like nixing all that and just, all right, it's the 20th anniversary. Let's release this bitch the way it's supposed to be.
The original cut, you can see this like really annoying matte box around the whole thing, and I think I did that so that it would fit on my CRT.
Mm-hmm.
I had an old, 480i TV or 720, whatever it was, 640i TV. And when I put it on the TV, I was like, oh, I can crop out all this stuff on the sides, and and it was just a bad crop, and that was the first version. And then when I released it with IndieCan, and they were a very good sales agent, don't get me wrong, they did some edits, they did some color correction. I actually never watched those versions, I'll be honest. I think
you never saw it? Oh,
never even saw it. Yeah, I mean, Dennis saw it, and he mentioned that The Agent, which was like the last release, is pretty cut up. There's a lot of stuff missing.
It is. It's butchered.
I'm like,
I was gonna get it, and I'm like, I'm not getting it. I'm like, I was like,
I mean, they even butchered me on the cover. Like, you have my head on like some Asian dude's body. There's this funny. Somebody posted a photo of like that same exact body with a different head on it. This is sort of how distribution works, where they'll just use clip art and make your cover, and that's just how that is. I'm not going to complain about that. And I let it sit. And then at one point, I exported a 720p version. I found the files, found the whole source files, and I just put it on YouTube just to like maybe send a link around. And it got copyright notification. And I was like, don't I own this? And I asked the sales agent, and I was like, why is Lionsgate saying that like they own this? What is going on? And he's like, let me look into it. And then he went to Lionsgate, and Lionsgate guys were like, oh yeah, we don't have that anymore. He can have that.
We forgot. Sorry.
I was offended a little bit. I was hoping they would be like, that's ours, but no, they didn't want it. So now I own it.
That's an insult. It's like, here, take it. I demand you take it back.
Please get this away from us. So then I had that 720p. I sent it to another old Stunt People forum member, Micah Brock, Whirlwind Productions, and he says I could upres this, and he upres it to 4K, and like, man, it looks really good. He fixed the slow-mo, he fixed a ton of stuff. So there it is. That's probably as good as it's ever going to get.
Now, what was the choice to put it on your channel? Like, did you ever think about like releasing it on a hard copy, like a physical media type?
Yeah, I just don't have time to send out DVDs. I had a store for a while. When that movie first came out in 2007, first thing I did was I printed 1,000 DVDs of it. And those sold like hotcakes, like online, and we sold them quick. At Comic-Con, we had like 1 year at Comic-Con, we just killed. We sold like half of those things. And that was like right before the economic, collapse. I don't know. People say that things got a lot worse in 08. The only way that I saw the economic collapse happening in 08 is at Comic-Con that year. Nobody bought anything. That was how it impacted me.
We have no money.
So Crimea River, everybody. I'm just kidding.
No.
But so
you didn't mean that.
I didn't mean that at all.
You didn't mean
that. So I think I lost my train of thought.
I was talking about the physical media, and you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I just at a certain point the store just I don't know. I don't have time. I run a company now. I run a motion capture company. And
yes, let's talk about that a little bit, like doing video games and stuff, because I've been following that too, like the work, like so talk about that because I talked to another actor, Chad Michael Collins, who does Call of Duty, he had some interesting things to say. Like take us through the process of doing that, because that's just because we're in the stuff, and then all it just seems like the most interesting job you could ever have. At least I think so.
It is interesting. What I love about so here's how I fell in love with motion capture. And everybody's heard the story. I did Tekken in real life. Sony found me. They brought me on to God of War. Did Kratos, the stunts for Kratos, and Baldur, Magni, Modi, probably a bunch of NPCs. And what I noticed about motion capture was that the process was not like filmmaking, not like Hollywood filmmaking. Because I had a short stint in Hollywood a few years before that, and it was not really like I didn't mesh well with it, because our idea of how action should be done, it's really hard to do that in Hollywood. It's just hard. And so because again, you have to previs, then you get 1 day to shoot your whole fight, then it goes to an editor and you don't know what happens after that, usually bad things. But with game design, when we would do action scenes in motion capture for God of War, it was sort of like indie filmmaking, because the camera is all digital, right? There's no actual camera. It's like a camera is just a 3D asset that moves around, and you can change that later if you want. The editing is like totally non-destructive. You can edit, and you can like if you're doing a 2-shot, if you're doing over the shoulder and one angle looks great, but the other angle is just like the framing or like something's just off, that you can offset stuff for just that angle. And then when you cut back to your A shot, it's back to where it was originally. There's just these amazing things that you can do with motion capture, where it felt a lot like indie filmmaking, in that the entire process was like compressed down into the moment of the performance. And it felt like theater almost. And so I bought my own motion capture system. I bought an Extensu, and just with my brother-in-law, we started a company out of a Pelican case, basically, which is that's this suit. It fits in a Pelican case. And
I saw a picture of you, like you were all decked out, and you had this. It was on your head. It was like it was like it was huge. I mean, it was like, it looked like it weighed your head down. But
that's the professional one. Like the
that was okay. So that's the that's the one.
Those are the optical ones at the optical mocap stages.
Gotcha.
But you don't have to have all that when you do mocap. You can get a much more scaled down version and get like pretty good results, and that's what we had. And you can still, we just got a facial capture. I think we're getting a facial capture system soon. I can't do it anymore. My face is all messed up with this beard. I don't think it can track me. I think the new ones actually can track, even with this. So anyway, we started our company and we went to Sony and asked them, hey, can we do your new God of War game? Just a couple of us folks, and we've got this mocap system, and we got that contract. I think we got God of War Ragnarok to do the gameplay capture. That was our first contract.
Yeah.
And it felt like all of this indie stuff had sort of come full circle, where we were just a couple guys that just really wanted to do it. And now we could do it for Sony, for Santa Monica Studio. And that was a huge vindication of the entire sort of mindset that went into this, because I just like doing it. I love the process. I love meeting people.
Yeah.
The product is pretty good sometimes, although I tend not to even like bother with the product. I just have too much fun in the process, and then the networking. That's the best part.
Yes. Now I want to talk to you, because my apologies, I just recently discovered your Action Talks podcast. So you're doing a podcast now where you're talking to, action celebrities. It's like you're Scott Adkins, Keith Vitelli. It's like, all you guys are doing these podcasts, you're going to put me out of business. It's like, but talk about what made you want to, start to do that.
Well, I was inspired by Scott.
Yes. Well, yeah.
He started it.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I was watching because here's the thing. I interviewed when I interview people, like, if he's like, I'll watch his. Like, I love watching two of my favorite action guys like just talking back and forth about, it's the best thing ever. Like, in you and Scott talking, like, it's just it's like comfort food. I don't know. It's just like you can't beat that conversation. I'm an action fan. I'm a genre fan, but you guys are in the industry, so seeing you guys, go back and forth, it's priceless. I mean, it really is.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoy it. Scott's very he really gets into like the visual and the process and or even like he can kind of like bring it into, I don't know, he has a very different take. His episodes are shorter, he's very concise, and he's a great interviewer.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very good at sort of like guiding that conversation down like a story. Mine, I would always approach it. So my episodes are 2 hours long a lot of the time. And I get really heady because I like to get into, inspirations and where all this stuff is connecting, right? I'm sort of building a family tree of action as I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And that's been the most rewarding part, is like getting into their heads of these men and women behind the action in ways that I started appreciating other kinds of action more as a result. I'm going to be a scourge to my people when I say this, but, I started to appreciate the Bourne Identity action films because I can kind of understand why they made them that way now.
The last film, the fight in the tunnel, I get hit, and like you cannot literally tell what's going on in that fight scene.
Yeah,
I mean, not all the fights in the Bourne movies are bad. Like, I defend the Bourne movies to a point too. I'm like, I can understand it, but that one was just like, oh my god, I didn't know. They must have been drunk when they were editing that movie. That part, because I was like,
look, it can be done badly. Don't get me wrong. For example,
does that piss you off? Like, if you're watching a movie and it's just like, I could do this so much better.
It just depends, man. Like, yeah, because sometimes there's just slop. Right, like Taken 2 is slop. Taken 1 is not slop. Taken 1 is done right.
Yes.
Even though aesthetically they're like almost the same, but there's just like Taken 2, there's slop.
We won't mention Taken 3.
I didn't even see it. But
don't bother.
But so the way now, after doing Action Talks, I've done 45 episodes and I've got a bunch in the queue. I'm taking a break for a second, but it will kick up again. But after doing Action Talks for a year, when people ask me now, like, how should I shoot my fight scene? My answer used to be, well, watch Contour. That's how you do action scenes. Or watch Death Grip. Or I'd say, watch a Sammo Hung movie. Now it just, to me, I just want to interview the person now and say, well, how do you see reality?
Mm-hmm.
And say, they'll have their like perception of how they see things, how they see movement. I'll say, when something goes past you, what do you think about it when it goes behind you? And they'll have an idea of that, right? That's like a philosophy based on how you see reality. And I'm like, that's how you shoot your fight scene. Shoot it the way you see reality. Find that. First of all, you got to know yourself, I think, but even just like go on your intuition. Like, how do you see things? Like, do you even want to follow that thing, or do you just want to let it go past your head and then cut and show it land and then cut back to your reaction? It's like a million ways to tell that story, and the audience will get it no matter how you do it. And it's just, they may not follow it in the moment, but if you show it, like, they'll process it at some point. I think that the average person probably doesn't really follow a Bourne action scene very well until after the fight's done, and then they sort of like process through it. They go like, "Oh crap, I got stabbed in the hand!" Like they think about it then, right? And it's like a different way of perceiving the scene. And I think that clicks with some people and not with others. But when it comes to actually shooting your action scene and how it's edited, you should just do it the way you see reality.
Yeah, you mentioned Death Grip, and I was actually gonna like, because I know you're known for the comedic ones, but I like Death Grip and Dogs of Chinatown. Like, it's like, I mean, I know those were heavier, like meatier, like movies for you, but especially Death Grip with Johnny Young Bosch. I met him, and he's awesome, and then like just getting you two fighting and everything. And I think Broken Path with him, which was never released, is like one of the best martial arts movies. And like, if people ask me, because on my website they're like, if you have to, give me a martial arts movie, I either say Broken Path, or I say watch one of Eric Jacobus's movies, because then you'll get your fill for, like, all good things.
Is there a question in there?
Yes. So real quick, and then I will finish up because I know you got to go. But just what made you do like the serious ones, like the Death Grip and the Dogs of Chinatown? It's like, was it just a change of pace? Was it something you're like, hey, maybe I want to do this, but then you're like, nope, I don't want to. I just want to do comedy.
Well, Dogs of Chinatown, I was hired to do that.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't direct that. In fact, I fought the seriousness pretty hard the whole time. I didn't win that fight. And the guy that made the film is a very gifted filmmaker, Micah Moore, and he does a lot of Unreal Engine stuff now, and he's very good. And actually, I think Micah and I were probably going through kind of a dark phase in our life. Everybody goes through,
oh, absolutely,
their pits. And 2011, Death Grip started as a straight comedy. And it was really goofy, but there was just like a lot of stuff going on at the time. Like a friend of mine went to prison, and I have various personal things going on, and it just got dark, But one of the things that stayed funny was that freaking bathroom scene, and that was the one thing where I was like, I'm keeping that though. That's staying funny.
Well, it was levity, like you needed the audience to relax for a few moments, with everything else that was going on. Yeah. Well, I can't think. I know you got to run. I know because you use a busy man. But I just wanted to say that tonight it drops at 7 Pacific.
Yep.
On your YouTube, which is going to be. I'm in Panama City, so it's I'm 2 hours ahead of you. So 9 o'clock me, and then 10 o'clock on the Eastern Seaboard. And then you guys are going to get on. You and Dennis are going to get on afterwards and do a thing.
I think it's going to be more than just me and Dennis. I think you're going to see a lot of cast and crew there tonight. It should be fun.
And you guys are going to answer questions.
We're going to answer questions. We're going to have some trivia and do some giveaways. We got some cool stuff to give away. I've got the bobblehead Jesus from the van. I'm going to give that away. That's going to be like the grand prize.
That survived. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I've got like a beta cam version of. I'll show you. It's great.
Yes, please.
So we got a tape version of the trailer. This won't play on anything anymore, probably. I've got like an old screener copy of Contour. I have no idea what this is. It might be an old cut. Good luck.
Like a surprise.
Signed undercut by the whole cast. We got a signed Contour black and blue whole cast. 3 sealed Contours black and blues. Again, these are just DVDs though. And then this big bad boy. This is a digital digibeta master of Contour.
Beta.
Can't believe.
Holy cow!
This is what we used to have to do, people.
Yeah, I'm 51. I remember beta and VHS.
I had to rent the deck. The deck cost $1,500 to rent this stupid deck to make this. I couldn't believe it. It's unbelievable. Things have changed. But that was 08.
Yeah. It's like, it's heavy. Well, the machines were like this big. I remember when my dad bought home the first VHS one, it was a tank. It was like on top of our TV, and it was bigger than the television almost. I was like, holy cow. But Eric, I can't thank you enough for joining me. I know you're a busy man, and talking about Contour. And again, tonight's 7 o'clock Pacific on your YouTube channel. The definitive, this is as close as it's going to get to the way I wanted it, correct?
I think so. Yeah.
Absolutely. And everybody just go on Eric Jacobus's YouTube channel. He's got all of his short films. And again, hopefully someday down the road I could talk to you again and just, get you on the podcast again and just
anytime
drill your brain about all the fun stuff that I've watched you do throughout the years.
Anytime.
All right, awesome. All right, so until then, everybody, this is Eric. He's got his movie Contour tonight on his YouTube channel. Check it out. If you have not seen it yet, it's the shit. Let me tell you, you're going to enjoy yourself. It's funny. You're going to laugh. There you
go. Law guide you.
Your character alone is worth the price of admission. I just love how you're just real quick. You're sitting at the table with the guy you owe money, and he's like, there were 5 guys. You told me 2. He's like, there's 5 guys. It's like it just makes you laugh, and
good.
And what's comedy with a little ass kicking?
Yeah, and it's a little bit offensive too. So be prepared to be a little bit offended. It should be fun.
It was back in 2004. What can I say? Yeah. All right. So Eric, run along, do what you got to do. Thank you so much. I'll try to contact you in the future, get you on here again, and talk all things action, and because I want to drill your brain about just movie making and action. Because every time I talk to you guys, I just want to get behind the scenes with what it takes to make a good action movie or an action sequence.
You got it.
All right. Take it easy.
See you, John.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, that was Eric Jacobus, his movie Contour, his first official feature-length film that he did way back in 2004. It's the 20th anniversary edition. Let me pop this up here again for y'all to see. He's going to be live with Dennis Ruel, who's also moving. You heard him. He says he's going to have all the a lot of the other cast members too. They're going to do a Q&A on the channel after the Hong Kong action film premiere of Contour on his YouTube channel, and he's going to be giving it away memorabilia. You saw it, autographed DVDs, and he's going to complain about the action film industry and most likely insult more than a few people. What's the wrong? Nothing wrong with that is what I'm saying. I've seen this movie many times, and I gravitated towards it a lot, and along with all of his other stuff, all of his short films and everything. So he's the real deal. He's been doing it for a while, and he really knows how to shoot action. And you all know me. I have been a champion of shooting action, and not just shooting action, but shooting it properly and with editing and, angles and all that stuff. And in this age where we're having this group of stunt professionals turned filmmaker, and they're really delivering some good product. This guy was kicking it way before then and showing us how it was all done. All right, so till next time, everybody. I also got my interview with Bren Foster I did this week as well. That is up on my YouTube channel, as well as my ACTION-FLIX.com website. And make sure you check out my ACTION-FLIX.com website for all things action. We are your ultimate destination for everything action. We got a lot of good stuff coming up. I got a lot of more interviews coming up. So until then, everybody, like I always say, be kind to one another, treat others as you would want to be treated, the golden rule. And like I said, the world sucks as it is. Just be nice and just talk action movies to everybody and just have a good time watching people kick ass on screen. Until next time, everybody, have a good one.